Good evening, class. We are the Dream Team, and we'll be discussing the topics of corporate social responsibility. Angela and I will discuss an article, Can a Corporation Have a Conscience, by Goodpasture and Matthews. And Mike and Stephanie will be discussing From Spare Change to Real Change, the Social Sector as Beta Sites for Business Innovation by Cantor. In their Harvard Business Review article from 1982, Goodpasture and Matthews ask the question, which also serves as the title, Can a Corporation Have a Conscience? During the extreme racial tensions of the 60s, Southern Steel Company faced a considerable pressure from the government to explain and modify its policies regarding discrimination, both within the plant and the major city where it was located. Southern Steel was the largest employer in the area, and 1/3 of its workforce were black. Southern Steel made great strides removing racial barriers for equal